when I wanted to start my own company, it was difficult at the time to do it. So I said, I'll start with a VC, I'll start with venture capital, get exposed to it. And then once I'm done learning about it, I'm going to start my own company. 22 years later, I'm still doing venture capitals.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley in partnership with Lumigo, sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest Labs, Synergy Global, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, Birthright Excel, Serona Partners, and in media partnership with CTech. Hello, and welcome to another episode of 20-Minute Leaders. Today, I have the honor of speaking with Eyal Niv, managing partner at Pitango First. Prior to joining Pitango, Eyal was managing partner at Giza VC, where he led the fund operations and focused mainly on IT infrastructure, semiconductors, and internet. Eyal serves on the board of directors of Graphcore, AI21, Lumigo, Optibus, and others. Eyal's investments have a primary focus on artificial intelligence, and he's also the co-founder of the Public Knowledge Workshop, a leading non-profit organization for freedom of information, as well as Take, an innovative impact-driven delivery service which helps the needy by providing them with food and delivery service on top of an on-demand delivery service. Beyond your personal journey and career and the fact that the way that you're integrating investments with working with founders and deep technology, you're a part of a family that is really a cornerstone of Israeli tech and the story of the startup nation, Pitango, and specifically your group, Pitango First, working with founders and looking at companies that really are changing the paradigm of technology and the way that other companies then leverage technology to create products for people, whether it's with Graphcore or Optibus or AI21. It's really phenomenal, and I'm really excited to unfold a little bit about your journey and Pitango First and understand this monster a little bit better. So thank you very much for joining me today.
It's a pleasure. It's really a pleasure, and glad to share that with you.
Take me back, a little bit about South Africa, a little bit about your own upbringing, which leads you to the intersection of deep tech and investing.
So, born in Israel, I moved to South Africa when I was 12 years old. Really loved technology. I was programming from the age of 9 years old. And when I moved to, my father was actually quite advanced at the time. Sent me over and said, "You got to learn how to program." That's a long time ago. That's almost 40 years ago.
Was he an engineer himself? Did he understand?
No, he wasn't. He was an entrepreneur and somebody that was always forward-looking and thought it made a lot of sense. I was always good with maths, and he said, "You gotta go and start programming." And I thought, what the hell? I'm going to start playing with a computer. At the time, it was obviously Commodore 64 and things like that, Spectrum. I got all of that. And he bought the first PC he got for me. I remember I used to go back and forth to Tel Aviv to see if it arrived. Every time I came to the shop, it wasn't, it was sort of a shop. They told me, no, it hasn't arrived yet. It took like a few months until it came through. And I remember I was so happy. At the time, I had a friend, Shai Amir, and Professor Eyal Niv, who actually, I think you interviewed him. And I used to go every day to their apartment in Holon, and we used to learn how to program and do all sorts of things. So that was my first interaction with computers and with technology, and I was fascinated. Really, it was amazing. I then moved to South Africa after spending some time with Shai and Eyal and learning how to do these things. And over there, it was more about mathematics. At the age of 16. I started a small company called Supercomputers, in which we did enterprise application integration. We tried to help research centers and hospitals and medical centers to actually do research and use PCs while they're using their old systems.
And at what age was this?
That was at the age of 16 when I was in South Africa. And then afterwards, I did everything in reverse. Think about it. So I started with a company at the age of 16. I then went to study actuarial science, which is, statistics and actuaries. and I studied actuarial science and finance in South Africa. And then after I finished that, I came back to Israel and I went to the Israeli IDF, to the Israeli army. And I spent some time with Unit 217. You probably know it as Duvdevan, where I had a very meaningful time. So that
Wow.
was, and also there I had a lot of interaction with technologies in order to do our job properly. And some of your listeners would probably know our missions from the Netflix series Fauda. Some of the actors actually were with me in the army at the time, and it was
Wow.
pretty intense. And so that's that. I continued the reverse method. So I started with a company, went to university, went to the army, and then I came out of the army. I was here in Israel and exposed to all this good technologies that are being developed. I said, I'm going to go and start my own company. And when I wanted to start my own company, it was difficult at the time to do it. So I said, I'll start with a VC. I start with venture capital, get exposed to it. And then once I'm done learning about it, I'm going to start my own company. 22 years later, I'm still doing venture capital. So, but I'm enjoying
Well,
it, really enjoying
with a
it.
few with a few organizations that are making extremely high impact on the world, as well as an entrepreneur. So not necessarily tech businesses, but still very high impact organizations. Take me back for a second to 16. You're mentioning you're working a company called Supercomputers, and you're understanding that technology has the ability to become a catalyst for research centers, for hospitals, for enterprises, and the current tools that we have, that the ordinary PC users use, they're not sufficient to leverage what they're capable of. Where was this understanding from? What did this represent? This technology as a catalyst for you?
So basically, at that time, it was more about the necessity of just setting up the PC system and interacting with old AS400 and mainframes and putting the whole thing together. At the time, it was so naive that even the network was not very prevalent. So we needed to build network and allow computers to speak to each other and build databases and all of that. But we realized that if you don't centralize everything and you don't interconnect between systems, then it will never work. And it was so difficult because people had to enter information as you enter a hospital into one system and then go and enter it into another system, and it didn't talk to each other. So you couldn't really research anything because it was all so proliferated. But at the time, it was more about just putting up a company together with a friend of mine and trying to make some money and feeling all independent. So that was just my first exposure.
Fantastic. Okay, tell me a little bit about Pitango First. You have a few different runs through the VC world. You are embodying deep technology throughout your journey. And a few years ago, you joined Pitango First, I believe, in 2015. Tell me a little bit about Pitango and then your particular entrance with Pitango
Great.
First.
So just by just making sure we complete that. So before Pitango, I was with Giza Venture Capital. I was heading their latest fund, and then we split out. And I was thinking, where can I form a fund which will invest in infrastructure in early stage? And I was approached by Rami Kalish and Chemi, and they said, why don't you come join us and form a new focused fund which will only do seed investments? And I thought, what a great opportunity, because it gave me the opportunity to invest in some deep tech and have the capability of making early stage investments with the ability to do follow-on investments. So I think what's unique about Pitango is that we have a full stack fund. We can enter a new investment very early on and continue to invest in follow-on investments all the way up to growth. So we do have a specific seed fund, which is Pitango First, and we have a growth fund as well as a health tech fund. And the way we've built it is actually quite unique, because a lot of people talk about deep tech. Not many people do it. That's on the one hand. So we are very keen to go into AI processors, AI as a deep technology. There are many facets to it. We also do quantum computing, and so we are very oriented towards deep tech. And on the other hand, we also have an operational platform, which we can talk about that. But we have six full-time people just doing operational work for our startups, which gives us quite a bit of a unique proposition, and that's just great.
And so, if we're looking at the operational side of post-investment of stage company, infrastructure, deep tech in our ecosystem, what is sort of the relationship between Pitango First and a company? That because you really do understand this field, and it's beyond just helping the founder, with hiring and with understanding how to build a company. You also understand what the world needs, and you've experienced this yourself. What does this process look like?
So first and foremost, we try and do quite a bit of research before every investment we make, and we divide the different sectors among the partners that are doing early stage investments in Pitango First. So that's on the selection side, and then post investment, that partner would try and support the founders in finding the right product market fit, which I think is the most important thing for any founding team. Some of them are more advanced and the more let's say experienced at doing that. So not every founding team needs the same level of support. So, and then post-investment, I would say there's a lot of acceleration that needs to happen. And that acceleration is in the form of hiring. And so we have a specific hiring person that is totally focused on helping our portfolio companies, marketing, business development. We actually have, a team that is working around the business development. So there's a whole support team that actually onboards a new company and helps them in accelerating some of these functions. And obviously, I think the most important thing is to help these companies create their own muscle, whether it's marketing, hiring, or business development. The idea is not to support them for a very long time, but rather help them to create that muscle internally.
Fantastic. And if we're looking a little bit about the types of companies that you're really excited about, and already in Pitango First, you've backed some of the companies we're proudest of, in our tech, because they're not only amazing companies, but like starting from the initial, few sentences, they're catalysts for change. They really are the tectonic shifts of tech and coming out of Israel. So share with me a few of those companies and a little bit about their stories.
So we really try and focus on inflective ideas. So things that would really change the world. Some people call them disruptive technologies, but I think that they are enablers more than disruptive. So to give you an idea, for example, we seeded a company called AI21. Some of the listeners would know. I think you would know it because you're pretty deep into the AI world. And the idea, this is, I think it's the ultimate company. And the idea behind AI21 is creating an AI model that is scalable and much more efficient than any AI model around the world. The equivalent would be GPT-3, that is doing some great work. But AI21 is creating something that's much more scalable and much more efficient. The marriage between AI and knowledge representation is creating a much more effective framework. And as an example, they developed their own personal writing assistant. So Professor Yoav Shoam and Professor Amnon Shashua, together with Ori Goshen, it's a dream team that we backed. They've been able to produce a new model, which they call the Jurassic, as well as prove that their technology, the technology behind AI21, is providing a better results. So their first product, as I said, is a new personal assistant which helps people with their writing. So it's called WordTune. So the name of the product is WordTune, and it's quite amazing at how it works. It's I like to call it Grammarly on steroids. Um, it really takes whatever you write, and in real time it rephrases it to the extent that it feels really human like, and it upgrades it, whether you want it to be longer, shorter, sportier, more polite, whatever you want it to be. That technology it actually understands the context of the sentence, or the paragraph for that matter, and it actually proves that they're making machines understand long text. So that's one product. They also have a read, which is amazing. They've proved their technology to be superior to anything that's available out there, and that's out of vision.
Tell me a little bit. You're also AI21 is incredible. You're also involved with Graphcore, Optibus, Commodore, Lumigo, Stream Elements, incredible companies. There are also more that I didn't mention. What really, unifies them is this enablement. And I really want to understand from you, Eyal, where, from the investor's perspective, your hat, because for a second, I thought you were a part of the co-founding team of AI21. The way that you're talking about the product, your passion, your understanding about the impact and the details of what's happening there. How do you see yourself as a part of these journeys? What is sort of your role as you're working with these remarkable people that are building these companies?
That's a good question. First and foremost, I think it is a support role. I never try to think of myself as good as the founders. I think the founders are they're the pilots, they're the warriors, they're the ones that we need to support. We are just a support system. I try and educate myself as much as possible about their ecosystem, about their technology, and make sure that whatever I say on the board will not interrupt them, but will only add value. At the end of the day, I see a lot of companies, and many of times my ability to give them good advice is just from the fact that I've seen more companies rather than ever thinking of myself as having more capabilities. So I try and stay modest and understand that they are the ones driving. They have their hands on the wheel, and I can only make a suggestion. I think that the most important thing for as a board member is stay educated about what the company is doing. Have the passion for the product. I expect that from my founders. I love founders who are very passionate about the product, about what they do, and passion is a big thing. And help them to form the best teams. So once they have a great team put together and it's complementary and it's amazing, a lot of people can make mistakes building these teams. But if it's one thing that I like to help them do is build, a top-notch team, almost like in a basketball team. You need to put them together and help them to actually hire the best people. And from there on, it's a much smoother ride.
Now, on the perspective of understanding, this changing world, because you're looking at companies that if they succeed, they are changing how we are either developing a technology or consuming content or interacting with public transportation. These are big questions that at the end make a big impact on people's lives. And you have also responsibility to know whether you're backing a solution that is going to make a positive impact or potentially dangerously a negative one. And we've seen examples throughout history, obviously, of tech companies that don't do things as right as we would like them to. How do you think through sort of that responsibility and that question as you're making these investments in these amazing teams?
And you've mentioned a few companies that I think are doing some very impactful things. I mean, AI21, Optibus, Stream Elements, by the way, is creating an amazing platform that enables a lot of people. Nextsite is changing how we interact with objects. We have some really great companies that I think are really impacting how people are living their lives. So the one thing we always try and do, and ESG is a big part of what we do, and positive impact is a big part of how we do things, both in terms of the products that we build, as well as the internals of our portfolio companies. So that's something we've put a lot of effort in doing an ESG. We have a full-time person just for ESG, internally for ourselves and for our portfolio company. So that's very important. I think you also interviewed her, Cecile. So it's really, we're really proud of being a pioneer in that space. So the way we think about it is, everything has to be positive and enabling rather than, replacing people, enabling people. So for example, if you look at the AI21 solution, it's enabling people that do not have the writing skills around the world to work for these big conglomerates wherever they are. So suddenly they can earn, they can make a living as if they were, top-notch Oxford students. If you look at Optibus, helping people to get better mass transportation, getting to work and from work in the best possible way. Via transportation, another great breakthrough that is impacting in a very positive way. Stream elements I mentioned, helping people make money from home. I mean, this could have been streamed. I'm happy it isn't. It isn't a live streamed at the moment, but it is helping people to earn money while they're at home. So we are looking at things in a very broad way. And how do we enable people to live a better life and to earn a living and just making the world a better place.
Eyal, amazing time that I had here. Fascinating. We're living in a super revolution, and the companies that we're talking about here, they really are changing how we are building things. And I'm looking back to, learning how to code at 9 and then at 16 creating a company and going to the non-traditional route of Duvdevan and experiencing that when you know that really, your role sort of in your life now is working with deep tech and engineering and understanding, that through venture capital you can make a lot of impact, and it sounds to me that your passion is so unique for all these different companies. It's as if you're working independently with all these companies, and I almost don't feel like I'm talking to a venture capital investor. I feel like I'm talking to an entrepreneur who gets excited about all these different solutions, which excites me as a young entrepreneur. And so thank you very, very much for the inspiration, and stay safe and stay healthy, and best of luck with Pitango First.
Fantastic, Michael. I appreciate it. It was great being here.